Welcome everyone to Robot Builders Night Virtual for Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. And we got the usual agenda, Roboarama, DPRG news, a queue, and then open mic. So let me ask for volunteers for the queue first. Mike, Dave Ackley, and Chris. Dave and Chris. All right.
Whenever Doug comes on.
Right, and Kareem whenever Doug comes on. All right.
I have a question to ask y'all as a group when sometime tonight.
All right, you're on the queue, Mike.
All right.
All right. So DPRG news, obviously the big news is Roboarama this Saturday. I expect we'll certainly video it because we always do, and so we can make a video of the highlights. And I don't see any reason why we shouldn't record it using Google Meet. So it'll be on the usual channel for any remote folks who want to connect it at any point. Competition will start at 1 Central, so we'll start up the video feed then. Let's see. I have a bunch of. You can't really see them. They're hidden behind Minibot, but bunch of trophies built. Sort of like these little yellow things in the background here, so I don't know how many contestants we'll have for the different events, but we'll see on Saturday. I think we won't have a Canadian presence, unfortunately. That was good fun last year when we did that, but it's not going to work out this year, unfortunately. And let's see, does anyone else want to say anything about Roboarama or is there going to be a Da Vinci award if merited? That's a Doug question.
What time are they is it starting? I know the contest is 1, but when are you started gathering?
I think that we normally start prep around 9 and lay the courses out. And if I remember right, let's see, the DPRG.org under the competitions tab for Roboarama, competitions column for Roboarama. Says it starts at 9 till 11 is room setup, and it'll be in the interactive classroom, which is deep inside the bowels of the makerspace. So if you're coming, look for a white doorbell. I'm hoping we'll have a Mishva from Robot Lab come pay us a visit. Robot Lab is where we're going to go visit in June and see their robots. And she's going to host us. Anything else on? So Kareem, we haven't normally, as far as I know, done a Da Vinci award at Roboarama A, but we can ask Doug what he thinks. Anyone else?
It's been part of a deep history, but we haven't done it much recently, I don't think.
Okay. So Carl said, is the June visit to Robot Lab confirmed? Yes. We have a date. It's going to be on the normal 4th Saturday, which is the 28th of June. So we're going to go, Mishva is going to take us over to Robot Lab headquarters, and they usually have 20 or 30 robots there of whatever they have on the floor, and we'll be able to look at them. And not sure how much will be live, but it should be fun anyway. Okay, and then the other thing is Moon Day. We're going to attend Moon Day this year, and Mark is leading the charge on that, and that's in July, middle of July, I believe, or late July. And it sounded like from the email list that we had a good set of volunteers already, and so I think that'll be fun. Any other DPRG news, comments, questions, or anything? If not, let's jump into the queue. Dave Ackley.
Well, let's see here now, what do we got here? Okay. Unfortunately, my software development has broken.
Oh no.
Here's my robot. It has the what is it? The very capable.
The general driver for robotics.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I started off using MicroPython on it, and unfortunately, it looks like the performance is suspect. MicroPython runs about 8 to 10 times slower than the hardware, and so I was going to have something to demonstrate tonight, but unfortunately, my software broke. I had something that actually ran, and I tried to recompile it, and the compiler says, yeah, I'm not going to do that. One of your statements is wrong, which actually worked very nicely for several days now, but it's not working. So unfortunately, I won't be showing anything at Roboarama.
Well, is it like, can you not fix it by Roboarama?
Pardon?
Can you not fix it by Roboarama? That's not till Saturday.
No, well, I was going to show where my problem was, except it's not running well enough to even do that.
Okay.
I had it running and a PID loop running that was doing some strange things. My suspicion is that it's the fact that MicroPython runs 8 to 10 times slower than the hardware. It may be bogged down. So I was going to try to resurrect it with the Arduino environment, which runs faster, but I'm running about a week late.
Well, if you get it going in over the course of the meeting well enough to demonstrate the problem, I'm sure we'd love to see a robot move.
Yeah, I would too.
And if you broke the software, you should be able to fix it.
Is your code in GitHub?
The hardware is all set and working well, but I'm to the point of the SMOP, small matter of programming.
Yeah.
Is your code in GitHub? Maybe you can crowdsource it out to to this group. Give us the link. Give the bug finder a reward of some sort.
Yeah. So
That's true.
I'll flail with it during the session here, and I might be able to make it work. But like I said, for some reason, the compiler is saying, no, that's not the correct interface, when in fact, that's what the documentation says I should use and what was working before. So I'm not quite sure where the problem is.
So Dave, is your code up on GitHub?
No, unfortunately, I'm not that advanced.
Okay. Too bad. You could call on the group, on the assembled group here to help you out with it if it was.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, like I said, I'm not that advanced yet.
Okay. Well, good luck. Good luck getting it going, and if we can see it going, that'd be great. Chris.
Yes, I don't have much, so I'm trying to do more again. I've been spending way too much time working and not any time, building robots. I'm trying to fix that. It's hard. It's just, so this is my, let me see, let me try to get this in focus here. This is my 8-inch or so Pololu Romi based platform that kind of put on the shelf and haven't worked on in a couple of years. About the same size as Dave Ackley's, I guess. And it's using still ROS 1, and I'd like to switch that over to ROS 2. For those of you who are on the Discord, as I mentioned, I asked ChatGPT to help me a little bit with this migration, just kind of a more optimized use of my time. And I'm not going to go through this. This is like a 25-page PDF it produced, but I'm quite pleased with it. It's helping me even remember what the code's doing. I didn't document it as much as I should have, and again, it's been a couple of years since I've worked on it, and I didn't ask it to document anything. If I did, it probably would have produced even better summary of everything. But it did an intro first of, okay, here's what the code is actually doing right now at a high level, right? Again, I didn't ask it for detailed documentation, but still, even that high level, is really, I need this, right, to get back into it. I just don't remember enough of it. What I did, like last time I worked on it was probably 2, if not more, years ago. So it did that, and then eventually it gets into what were the differences between ROS 2 and ROS 1, and explains that in general terms, and then gets even more specific in terms of what I need to do. So I think that was quite good, and it's going to be helpful. Haven't gotten very far yet. I only got as far as installing most recent Ubuntu on my laptop, Ubuntu 24, so I can install ROS 2, the latest in there, right? Still have to install Ubuntu 24 on my Pi 4. So I'll be swapping out SD cards. I don't want to lose what I have right now on the robots. So I'm going to keep that, and is to just switch over to a different SD card. But I also am reconsidering whether I really want to work on this guy here, because one of the challenges is, it's small because I like it small for small spaces, but because it's got the upper deck, you really can't get to anything, right? I need the upper deck so I can put the lighter on top. Now I can't get to anything inside, right? It's just, and this thing is jam-packed, right? This thing is jam-packed. I've got ultrasonic in the front. I got 3 IR sensors in the front. Some of them have come loose. Yeah, it's going to be a pain to sort of get this all fixed up again. So I'm just wondering if I should switch to a bigger platform. I do have, this is probably a 10-inch. I do have sort of from even earlier, your standard plywood-based round platform. So it's only 2 inches bigger, but it makes a big difference. But here's the same thing, but in the double deck configuration. So don't know if I will go back to these, because obviously that'll entail a lot more electrical work and other work, which I may not find the time to. So, but yeah. So the small size of the Romi platform is a bit of a constraint right now that makes certain things a bit more painful. But I'll probably end up sticking with it, because realistically, I don't think I have the time to build up, another platform from scratch again with sensors and all that stuff. So that's where I'm at. I'm hoping to, at some point collect the gold star, but not quite there yet.
Did it suggest to you to use the ROS1 to ROS2 bridge?
And yeah, I have looked into that. So at one point I started doing this and then put it back on the shelf. So I had an earlier version of ROS2 running on my laptop. And I remember doing something with the bridge. I don't remember how far I got. But so you're suggesting just keep everything as is on the robot?
No, I'm suggesting do not go that route. That was the route that was suggested when I started converting a ROS1 robot to ROS2. And as I was going down that route, it was revealed more and more that even the developers of ROS1 Bridge were like sort of back spacing a little bit. And I think it's better to rip off the Band-Aid and move forward.
And
it's only if you have a ginormous project that it might be warranted, and there's just no way you can do it all in one go. But yeah,
it's not that big. It's not that big. And so, yeah, I'm not planning to use ROS Bridge. I am aware of it. I think I've looked at it a year ago, but now I'm planning to just switch it over. I don't have that much code, frankly. It's just I gotta fit it within the time budget. And so I'll just rip the Band-Aid off, and things have matured enough. And several people on the phone here who I can tap into for help. So
what kind of a processor does it run on that board, on the robot?
So on this inside, you can't see it. Well, I don't think you can see it. You might see the USB connector coming out of the Pi and the Ethernet connector. So there's a Pi 4 in there, which kind of plugs into a robot I/O control board that does the motor control and has the encoder interface and has some other I/O. So there's a board that came from Pololu with the platform that the Pi directly plugs into, and it gives me some I/O. And then I had to supplement the I/O through other means, like a QT Pi for additional I/O, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's basically a Pi 4. I can't go to a Pi 5 with this thing because I think I looked at that at one point. I don't remember if it was power related. I won't be able to power the Pi 5 in that setup, or was some mechanical thing. I don't recall exactly, but I know I can't use the Pi 5 inside this setup.
Is it so your robot controller board is not a smart board in the sense of having an ESP32 or Arduino?
No, it is. It's running. What's it running? It's running an Atmel, because Pololu for the longest time, right, or maybe still are big into just the Atmel line of stuff. So it's running some Atmel, and so it is smart. It's running firmware that I control, okay, and that I interact with and talk to, and I know where you're heading. I don't see necessarily a point in putting micro ROS or what have you on that microcontroller. It's only 8-bit, so it's not very beefy. Yeah. It's only 8-bit Atmel.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I would see the benefit in doing that. I'd rather have it just collect the sensor data and give me the interface to the motors and the encoders, send it commands to let it do its thing. I don't need that thing to be also ROS, I think that would add more complexity than it's worth.
So maybe this is a point to pull from those who've done a ROS1 to ROS2 migration. I know Kareem has, and I have, on what we found the big differences to be. And from looking back over the last year and a half or so, of trying to get wrap my arms around ROS2, I feel that the one of the big changes was all the documentation, all the tutorials for ROS2. They changed the paradigm. They changed the programming best practice that they show in tutorials, if you will. It used to be in ROS1, you'd do node handle equals ROS_pi dot, I forget, node or something or other. And then you'd use the node handle to create subscribers, publishers, do everything you wanted, essentially outside of a class. And in ROS2, they've changed all of the examples to do it in a class. And the class subclass is node, and it calls super.init, which creates the node, turns that class into a node, and then they do like self.create subscriber, etc. Well, it turns out you don't have to make that conceptual change. I've recently come across some code examples where they just do node equals rcl_pi dot node, and you get a node handle that way. And then you can do node.create subscriber. So I don't know why they went through. It threw me off, and I rewrote a bunch of code to follow that new style. And then it turns out you don't have to, and quite a few people don't.
Interesting.
So that was one thing that.
So you're saying you can keep the code closer to what it used to be if you don't adopt the new style.
Yeah, closer to the ROS1 style of having a node handle that's outside of a class, and you just like use it to access subscribers and timers and logs and all that stuff.
Okay.
So that was one. The other really big thing that looking back for me was yes, in ROS1, if you were in a callback, you used to be able to stop in a callback. Just do a time.sleep for a little while, 0.1 seconds, whatever you needed. You really can't do that. Things break badly in ROS2 if you stop inside of a callback. So callbacks all have to finish, or else you end up having to do this peculiar construct in ROS2 where in one part of a method you create a future, and which is an what's the word, idiom imported from Python, but they brought it into C++ as well. But it came from Python async IO, where you create a future and then you make an async call, and then you can return out of that method, because you're not allowed to stop in that method and wait for, like, for example, for not a function call, remote, not a remote procedure call, a service call to return, and then within where you do the call async, you register a callback, and then you exit the function after the call async, and then the function that you identified with the future wait future callback gets called when it's time, when the answer has come back. There are also some versions that do a wait on future, but that use of this future thing really kind of confused me for a long time, and I'm still sort of only just getting my arms around it. And I still don't really completely have my arms around it, because I still don't there are very few examples that do what you used to be able to do in ROS 1, where you'd have main, and then main would set about doing some stuff, and then it would loop and loop and loop and loop and do things and poll some subscription data and then do some other things. And they don't have examples of how to do that in things like service calls and actions. So I still don't. I'm working on it, but I don't have it. I don't have my arms wrapped around it completely.
That's what I'm worried about.
It's wrong too that you use the multi-threaded node and use callback groups, and then you can stop. You can sleep in those callbacks.
Multi-threaded executor and callbacks. Yeah.
And callback groups.
Callback groups. Yeah.
You have to be judicious with your callback groups so they don't interfere with each other.
Yeah.
But you can give them their own callback group, and then it's just completely independent, so it doesn't stop anything.
Good point, Mike.
Yeah.
So does that mean that node through this executor loop and executor and callbacks, does that mean that those are kind of like a similar concept as Node.js event loop? Does anybody know Node.js?
Node.js.
Because you mentioned the word future, and then I just did a quick search in Google and asked if there's a concept like it. And so the thing is, like in Node.js, it's got this event loop, and they don't have the word future in there at all. But what you do basically is when you run through the JavaScript, it queues events in a sequence, and then magically under the covers, the processor goes through and it executes the events. But unless you write it in a blocking way, it lets you have things happen asynchronously. But it uses this concept of an event loop to do it. And it looks like the executor and callbacks are pretty similar. So you can do multiple tasks concurrently without blocking, basically.
Yeah, but Ross by default uses a single threaded operation. So everything inside that node is in one thread. So if you stop, then everything stops. Yeah.
By default, yeah. And what Mike's talking about is ways around that.
Multi-threading.
Yeah. But I think the big paradigm shift, and it's not an absolute by any means, but you read a lot of everything in ROS 2 should be a callback, but not quite, because like if you're running 6can, you need to have a runner that starts off and anyway, it's
see that's why it sounds very much like Node.js, because that when you're used to just control like C or something and it's just inline, it executes, you know when it's blocking, you know when it's not blocking, you control interrupt service vector. I mean, it's very clear, but that other style of asynchronous programming, so it sounds like Ross is thinking the same way as there might be some good concepts to learn from the Node world, but
there are some style changes in ROS 2 and they're not absolutes. It seems like there are maybe some ways to use a more ROS 1-ish sort of style, but there's definitely some style differences.
Yeah,
Kareem,
well, I'm lucky because I didn't do ROS 1, so I'm not polluted with ROS 1. Yeah.
Same here. I had to learn enough in order to make the conversion, but I started out the ROS 2 way, if you like. So But yeah, promises and futures are a pretty standard idiom for dealing with asynchronous callbacks. So it's I don't know that they did anything wrong in their implementation of it.
Yeah. Well, good luck, Chris. I'm looking forward to hearing how that goes and news about your progress.
Yeah, and thanks for the heads up about some things. So
let's see. Doug is on the line now. So Kareem, you want to discuss something for Roboarama?
Hey, Doug, are you there? Are you active? Hello, Doug.
I gave Doug a heads up via a text, and so he knows. I told him the topic was
He must
on
be
Discord.
AFK at the moment.
Yo, Doug. Okay.
Doesn't
Maybe
really
we'll-
make much sense to have this discussion without him.
Right. As the master of contests.
Yeah. Anybody got anything else in the meantime?
Yeah, I've got my question, and it's right along with what you guys are talking about. I realize that 6CAN is, from what I've watched, is very complicated and it's challenging. I've attempted to learn MicroPython several times. I'm thinking about diving in. Is can you run micro? And I know I talked about Dave last month at the monthly meeting about this one quite a bit, but can 6CAN be written in MicroPython 6CAN programming, or does it need just by itself? Just because I really learned something that's gonna, I don't know. I kind of want to learn something that I want to learn it and be able to make it functional within the robot community. Hobby. Anybody have anything to add to that, or what's my question? Is Python?
Can't imagine there's any reason why it couldn't handle it.
No, most of my 6CAN code is in Python. So I don't see why you couldn't do it in MicroPython.
Yeah, as long as you have good C libraries. Yeah.
What's that, Mike?
As long as you have really good C libraries to handle the heavy math. Yeah.
There isn't for C.
I don't know that there's any heavy math required for it.
Oh, I guess that's just a style. Yeah.
Okay, because I'm fixing to get after it with MicroPython just for the heck of it, and didn't really want to. I've got enough, Arduino C++ that I'm actually halfway functional with that programming stuff. About understanding a lot of it.
But Michael, are you referring to MicroPython on an ESP32?
No, I'm actually going to start. I've got an ESP32. As a matter of fact, Dave, you can see that one you showed me last month. I went ahead and bought it, but I have a Raspberry Pi Pico right here that I've got a whole kit I was going to learn on. I got one of those Pico kits. I bought this about 2 years ago and hadn't done nothing with it.
Yeah.
And I thought I learned, because there's a guy on YouTube that goes through this whole kit. So I was thinking about following him, and I won't have any problem with this Pico probably jumping to ESP32, right? As far as when I'm ready to jump over to that microprocessor.
I can talk a little bit about my experience with MicroPython on both the Pico and the ESP32. I like it a lot, primarily because the interactive methods I use to test modules and develop a structure around modules I've already tested goes really fast, faster than with a compiler. But what I've learned is two things. First of all, the implementation of MicroPython on the ESP32 has a few issues in low-level drivers that result in them running somewhat slowly. They run with lag. And that's because MicroPython on the ESP32 is built on top of the embedded RTOS that's distributed with the ESP32s. And they basically run the MicroPython as a single task on that RTOS with a number of exceptions where they've actually written hard-coded logic. For instance, serial interfaces work really, really well. Interrupts, digital interrupts, a disaster. Really not good. So if you're depending upon things that use digital interrupts that run through normal digital inputs and they have to be fast, you will have a lot of problems. I learned that the hard way. On the Pico, you'll find that things run a whole lot better. The MicroPython implementation on the Pico appears to be mostly native, and it runs really fast with everything that I tried. And you can get even more performance from a Pico by running it at, say, 250 megahertz instead of its default 130. It will run just fine at higher speeds. Lots of people have proved that. So you don't have to use the default Pico speed. You can run it faster, and that's easy to do. What I've started to do, especially with my ESP32 based systems, is when I need things to run fast, for instance, a PID loop on a gear motor, if I want it to run fast, then on the ESP32, what I will do is I will download to an Arduino on which I have implemented just PID loops, which are done in Arduino C++. And then use whatever your preferred serial interface is between the Arduino and the higher level controller, like the ESP32 running MicroPython. And I think from the bit of work I've done in that area already, that appears to be a really good choice. I've implemented an I2C slave on the Arduino, the 8-bit Arduino, and that's working very well as an interface. On the Pico, if you want really high-speed stuff like quad encoder counters on a Pico, implement one of the several PIO-based encoder packages to get really good response for something like that, as long as you're comfortable running the PID loop itself for motor controller at a somewhat slower rate. So overall, Pico seems to do a better job for a lot of MicroPython-based implementations. The ESP32, you need to be really careful about what you ask it to do. If it needs fast response and it's digital interrupts, it ain't gonna work at all. It's really bad. There's milliseconds of latency on that stuff. But other things work really well. Serial interfaces worked great. I2C works really, really well on the ESP32's MicroPython. But just, you have to be a little bit cautious. Other than that, they run really well. I especially like the async IO cooperative multitasking functions that are part of the MicroPython library set. I've used that a lot. I like it a lot. The only thing you have to be careful about is there's a tool that lets you monitor how well it's doing, how well things are running in the different task threads. And that has bugs, so you have to be careful when you use that. But it does work. So that's sort of how I feel about it. I like MicroPython. I'm going to keep using it now that I've learned it, but I'm going to be using it more selectively than I used to.
Yeah, that was my experience in trying to bring this up on the module I showed, the ESP32, is that it's clear that trying to run the motors really sucks in MicroPython. And I'm trying to drop back to the Arduino environment to do that part.
You know, I think that answered my question. Yeah, Dave, we talked last month at the meeting. You talked extensively, Tom, about that. Yeah, it's well, cool. Thank you, Tom, a lot, man.
My pleasure. I'm also taking advantage of the fact that I have, quite a pile of leftover 8-bit Arduinos now that I've moved to 32-bit processors, and now I got a use for them. They become low-level controllers.
I got a whole Toto.
Yep. I got a use for them now.
Hey, Tom, thanks for the information about the Pico running at 250 or at double speed.
Yeah.
Because I'm running my sensor micro, my Pico, and it seems to be bogging down. And I was thinking of using both cores, but maybe I'll just keep it on a single core and just double the speed on it.
Try that. It takes nothing to do. So
yeah, okay. I'm going to try that.
Well,
My systems are running at a lower rate than they should.
Yep.
Did you say you was running a Pico? I missed that.
Oh, I'm running a Pico, but I'm running a C on it, and it's still
okay.
it's still bogging down with all the sensor data.
Okay. All right.
Mike, how are your sensors interfaced?
Serial.
Okay, so you're using multiple hardware serial ports?
Oh, to the sensors. Oh,
Yeah.
PIO. Yeah.
Oh, you're using PIO to the sensors. Okay.
Basically.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any problems with that.
Yeah. I2C and PIO and stuff. Yeah.
Hey, Doug, are you back?
Tom, which are the things that you found run reasonably well in MicroPython on the ESP32?
Serial interfaces, hardware serial interfaces run really well. Now, there aren't very many of them, but there's enough. So they run really well. I had to implement an interface to a radio control receiver. And I wanted to bring in the entire serial train from a radio control receiver into the ESP32. And I initially attempted to do it with some fairly straightforward digital input timing measurements. And that's when I discovered how awful the interrupt-based mechanisms and the timer-based mechanisms on the ESP32 are in MicroPython. They're just awful. There's lots of material that's been published on the problems and the workarounds. None of the workarounds were going to work for me. I needed to measure the serial data stream from the radio control system, if you're familiar with those, with reasonable. I wanted 10 microsecond at least resolution, preferably that good in accuracy. And you can't even come close. So then what I did was I stuck a small Arduino, an AT Tiny, actually implemented some C++ code on it to capture the data stream from the receiver and turn it into a serial interface, and then run the serial interface the serial interface is running at several hundred kbaud. I forget exactly what, I'd have to look it up. But the ESP32 in MicroPython has no problem at all with that serial interface. It just runs and runs. So it's several hundred kbaud.
The serial interface, you're talking about the UART interface?
Yes, a UART interface. That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So UART interfaces work fabulous. Timers and digital I/O interrupts, not so much. So.
Hey, Doug, Kareem had a question for you. I don't know if you got a chance to look at the Discord thread that I alluded to on in the text. You're muted, Doug.
Yeah, I looked at his whining.
Whining.
Yeah, but no, actually, he had a point. When I was setting up the rules, I was watching barrel race videos of like nationals, and they always had it looking like the guy came out of a chute. I mean,
Yeah.
Not a little boxy chute, but like a hallway, if you want to call it that. So that's where they would get their speed. And when they got to the end of the hallway, that was where the start line was. Okay.
Yep.
Kareem put some 4-H pictures up there, And, you know, I can see that they're cutting, but if you still look at those pictures, I believe they're cutting from the center of the line, center of the start line, but, you know, they're at an angle. So I have no problem extending the start line and getting rid of that particular requirement. I was trying to emulate what I was seeing on videos. And so I was interpreting the videos wrong. They're more of a, what do you call it? Arena limitation than, or, you know, than the actual rules. Now, he had a second point where he wanted to add a beacon at the end. You know, I don't have, we can add, when he said a beacon, he wasn't really saying a beacon, he was saying a can. So there would be, instead of the 3 cans, there would be 4 cans. So when you start it up, there'd be a can behind you. And when you end, you could aim at the can that's where the start, you know, where you started. Is that, if I read you right, is that, Kareem, is that what you were saying?
Yeah, that was more as an amelioration in case we were sticking with the narrow start line, narrow end line, because you could say that you know, if you're looking at the starting chute that the real horses come out of, that's at least visible to both the horses and the cowboys once they're returning back. Right. Whereas that little line on the floor might not be so visible. So, you know,
well, we didn't require them to finish on the start line, did we?
Yeah, you did. You said the center of the robot had to pass.
Oh, that's yeah, but that was on the start, not on the end. I thought.
No, that was on the end.
Oh, I'll have to look at that. See, so to me, that would have been the less of a problem because you'd be coming around the third can, and you'd be trying to aim for the quickest route, which would be a straight line to the start.
Yeah.
But I've got a little problem here with my earphone. Let me get it fixed.
That could be an extra point. Yeah. Extra point if you go over the line. That's good.
Okay.
Well, points don't make much sense in that, since it's a timed race and everything else is a pure disqualification.
Yeah, that's what, you know, and I did look that up. The thing was that if essentially you knock a barrel over in the race, you're disqualified. So
no, it's usually a 5-second penalty.
No, I looked that up. It was the disqualification, or at least in the national. I mean, I don't know.
I think you're right on the nationals. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you know, from my point of view, this is the first time we're running the contest. So, you know, it's going to be, you know, we're going to bend over backwards to make it less easy. I mean, more easy than.
So here's the bit that Kareem was referring to. The length of the start-finish line is only 9 inches long, and the center line of the robot must pass over the line.
Yeah, so I'll just change the 9 to, you know, whatever. I can't remember what the spec. I'll say the distance between cans 1 and 2 or whatever.
Do you think you'll be able to get some of your iron rainers to do something with this by Saturday, Kareem?
It's a long shot. We're trying. I'm trying to get them to do it, and they seem interested in it. I think Fernando's actually on the call tonight, listening in to see how this goes down. But the problem is it's finals week.
Oh.
And they, and they hadn't done any prep work on this beforehand because they were competing all the way up until this last weekend. So it's going to be a race, but there's work happening on the new Swerve chassis, and maybe get something working. We'll see. I'll say it's a long shot, but.
Well, good
Working
luck
on
in finals, Fernando.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, well, sounds like your request is granted, Kareem. So if someone can make, I haven't heard of anyone else looking at doing barrel racing. So that'd be kind
Well,
of,
then it just becomes an exhibition, I think, right?
Well,
Which
if
is fine.
yeah, but it, to sweeten the pot, we'll, just to make sure we'll give them a prize. They'll get a prize, probably a third prize, but you know what I mean? We'll get something, and if they really do good, maybe give them a first prize. Because this is the first time we're running the contest,
Well, I was asking about if you're going to be handing out Da Vinci awards again anytime soon.
There is a Da Vinci award. I don't know how it's written. How the Da Vinci award was done was that everybody who participated in the contest, or in your case, several contests. So any competitor, they get one vote. They get to pick one of the things that they want. And if they get half the votes, I think it was, or something like that, then they get the Da Vinci award. Okay. So the decision isn't made by any judges. It's made by the actual competitors. And this what they see as being truly something new, unusual, different, well executed, whatever criteria that they particularly want to reward. And that's what it goes. I'll tell you that at Robo Columbus, it didn't work out too well. Everybody voted for, I think, a different thing. So there was not,
yeah.
so it didn't come out very well. But
That's all right.
You have to. So the intent would be, and they're not supposed to collaborate ahead of the vote. Otherwise, they're not. It's supposed to be a decision that they make without being coerced. But if any competitor, so on something like this, there'd probably be about 10 people, so you'd have to get about 5 votes. That's what I'm assuming.
There were a couple of other questions about the barrel racing. So one was because you don't have a defined position for the cans ahead of time, probably to be flexible with room constraints.
Yeah.
Do we get to measure the placement of the cans once the course is set up?
Yeah, and if you get there early, you know what I mean? Yeah, there's no.
Yeah.
We can mark them out early in the morning, because I think there's a suggested distance I put out there. Can't remember what it was.
You said 6 to 8 feet optimally of the the equilateral triangle of the cans.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that'd be 8 feet on
the side. That's a big range, and it depends on like the other question that David Steele had. David, you want to ask it? He's on.
Yeah.
But it was
he's hear me now.
Yes.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I was curious about the distance from the barrels to an outer wall.
As much room as we can make it. That's why there's no given specific distance, because I want to say I read somewhere that I want to say it was about a quarter of the distance between the barrels. Something like the barrels were so far apart, and then there was like 20 or so feet beyond that you could go around. So the intent would be that we'd make it as big as we could. And if anybody felt it was too tight, we'll just bring the barrels closer together,
Okay.
I mean, I'm thinking that in that room, we should be able to have plenty, you know, if we put it in the center, because it's only 3 cans. You
Right.
know, you know,
But usually the 6-can arena goes in the center, right?
no, it usually goes in the corner. Well, we can put it in, we've run it in the corner. I don't know where we ran it last
Oh.
year, but
Last year it was in the
back-
center. But,
okay,
but
yeah.
yeah,
Usually we ran it in the corner
okay.
because it's such a big one that we
Yeah.
we want to make the big alternate, the square, if we're doing 4 cans, which we are,
Right.
it should be as big as we can make it.
Right. Last year we had the 4 corners go around the outside of the
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
6-can.
So that's
arena.
the sort of thing we want to do. We want to make it so that the space can be used in
Yeah.
multi contests.
Yeah.
Are we
So-
doing 6-can last? So
Typically,
it needs to be up the whole time?
no, and with Scott's new, well, okay, people are probably going to want to practice. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it probably should be up all the time. But you know, if
But you could put up barrel racing, like, because it's such a simple setup. You could run that last. I'm not suggesting this, but you could run it last if there's a space constraint,
yeah,
and then just push the
Yeah.
if you're done with
Yes, that's a
6-can,
good
you
point.
could push it aside.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. Good point. Yeah. You know, I always tried in the past was we start with the simple ones and go to the more complex ones. But actually, I don't know, you know.
Well,
Barrel
6-can
racing-
is the natural,
Yeah.
most premier, I guess,
Yeah.
event.
So anyway, we'll see how it goes. You know. Yeah, I mean, I don't expect, like I was telling last week, you know, first time we ran 6-can, it was it was not very impressive. You know, I mean, it was you remember that we were in there, you know what we did. I think
Yeah.
the
yeah,
winner
yeah.
was like 1 can or something like that. And it was because they aimed at the can and, you know, they got it, you know what I mean? They aimed at the can when they started, so they pushed it out. And after that, it was, you know, pretty much chaos. So, you know, that's the way and now look at it, you know, it's really a challenge now that people like. You know,
Scott has got a finely tuned machine, a couple of finely tuned machines,
mhm.
and
Yeah, but if you
Oh.
manage to get 6, you know, you might not beat him on time, but you at least, you know, there's a chance at 3rd. And, you know, our problem has been, you know, Mike's had a lot of trouble with his machines because, you know, I watch him do the pattern over and over and over again, and then he gets in competition and it chokes, you know, and, you know, why, you know, why, you know, and I've had problems where loose wire would intermittently screw up my IMU and cause just disaster. So anyway, so
well, I'm on the hairy edge of whether I'm going to be there or not. I actually in my mini course behind me, which is only 5 feet by 7 feet, I actually got it to pick up 6 cans today. And so I was like, I finally found a bug that has tormented me for at least weeks. And I'm going to blame Ada, although it's probably that I didn't specify to Ada what the requirements were, but it is sort of instructive as to what the bug was. But the symptoms were that every now and then it would hang after a rotate to point at, like to rotate the point of the can or rotate the point of the goal, or sometimes after a drive to someplace, it would hang for anywhere between 30 seconds and 10 minutes, but then it would take off again. And it was the weirdest thing. And I finally found it was a problem where the aider had done something that I thought, oh, that's clever. I didn't know about that, but it burnt me. So it had coded up, it had used Python's events, and it had made a loop wait on an event and with a timeout of 0.1 seconds. And if the event didn't happen, then, and the event was completion of a service request. And so if the event hadn't come, the completion hadn't come back yet, then it would do a spin once and then wait again. Well, this node had interrupts coming in at like a couple of them at 30 hertz. So, you know, if it was hanging around for 100 milliseconds and then it would spin once, I don't know how many processes it handled it within 10 milliseconds, but I think what was going on was the completions were getting like flushed out and left behind until like somehow they
just got lucky.
Came to the top of the queue, maybe between 30 seconds and 10 minutes later. So anyway, fix that.
You got it. 6 cans, huh? That's good.
But so then I thought, okay, I tore down my arena behind me and set it up in the bedroom across the hallway, and it just wouldn't navigate worth a darn. It would like just the navigation, the localization with the LiDAR would just go all wonky. And so I started measuring odometry, and there's a soft pile carpet in there, and odometry was 15 to 20% off, and you know, and different in when going forwards than when going backwards. And so, you know, I was like, okay, that wasn't going to work. So I negotiated with my wife to take over the living room for the rest of the week, which is a hardwood floor. And
then it started working again, right?
And well, I just set that up tonight, so I haven't had a chance to try it yet. So unfortunately, I don't have a demo. It was collecting cans, but I can't show it because I tore out my mini arena and haven't tried it in the big arena yet.
Okay. Hey, Pat, you were going to do line following up there in Canada. Is that still on?
No, unfortunately, Tom and I have both, because we can't get our robots going, too much other stuff in the way, we've both canceled out.
Okay. So, you know, I hope you'll watch at least.
Part of what being busy is if it's raining, I will be watching. If it's not, I will be outdoors doing some work.
Yeah.
So I will try. I'll do my best to be online watching.
Yeah, we had a wonderful day today. The weather out there was just amazing. I mean, usually
it's been cool here. We're back to mid-April weather maybe.
Okay.
So we're in today was like 12 degrees Celsius, so 54, 55 degrees, I guess.
Yeah, we're having, really nice weather. I mean, I was actually out and I said, this is almost like air conditioning. You know what I mean? It's just really nice.
Outdoor Roboarama weather?
No.
Boy, no.
I was stuck inside trying to make my damn 6-can robot work.
Yeah.
I really wish I could compete. We had a lot of fun last spring at Tom's place. I'm glad he was able to host it. Yeah. And the three of us, and it was excellent. It's just this year, life is not cooperating.
Yeah,
Life
well, the
and
way life
robot.
is. Well, you guys can always call some sort of competition of your own and just let us know. And, we'll be the peanut gallery for you. So maybe a little later. Think about it.
You never know. I've got a couple ideas but it's going to be the fall before I get anything going.
Yeah.
I've got a busy summer with family and with work. So
Me too. I've got some really big trips coming up. But it'll be really interesting, after this week, then it's Robo Columbus. Switch gears.
I'm almost hoping for rain Saturday so I can be inside to watch.
Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll have fun.
Thank you.
Yeah. So.
Let's see.
Any other questions about the Roboarama this week? Any other rule things or anything like that? Okay. All right. Okay. We'll see you there. If you can come early and help set up, your help will be appreciated.
I had a question about the barrel racing competition you put out.
Yeah.
Did you have the can color specified in the rules?
I think so. I'm sure this year we probably went the simple route.
Okay, because one of the questions I was thinking is, in your drawing, you drew, I think it was a red, a green, and a yellow can, or yellow loop.
But that image was stolen from the internet.
Regardless, I think that may help that you can differentiate the can, you can differentiate which way you go around it.
Yeah. Well,
first which can, and then you go around.
People want to do it, just let me know and we can change it. We'd have to make new cans. That's the ones we got now. You got a pile. We just use the competition can and stick it out there.
We've got a lot of time to prepare between now and then.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can tell left from right pretty easily.
We know they're different. We don't know which side they might be, but we know they're different.
Isn't it different north or south of the equator?
They're upside down, right? They're flipped. So, yeah. So anyway. Okay. Well, in that case, I'm going to just video out here. Anybody else?
Thanks for coming by, Doug, and answering the questions.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Let's see, is Kyle still on the line? Nope, doesn't look like it. He was here at the beginning, but I guess he's bugged out. Okay. All right, open mic. Yes.
Question for the double E's on the phone here. I haven't. Let me just share. I have my LiDAR on my bot is the RP LiDAR A2, and I'm trying to reverse engineer what I did there a couple of years ago when I hooked it up, because if you can see this, I'm interfacing directly, like at this level with the LiDAR, not through the interface board that would be at the other end of this cable. So I'm going directly into here. And as I'm starting to sort of mess around with my robot, I'm looking at I'm realizing, okay, red I left dangling and white is where I feed power into. And yet everything is saying red is VCC and white is, another ground. There's a black ground and there's chassis ground. And so how on earth is it working? Is it accidentally working, or is all the documentation I can find wrong, or did I butcher the cable and swap the colors around? I have no idea what's going on. I'm feeding power into white, which is not the power is supposed to go, and it all works.
But you know, those power electrons only like red wires. They don't work in other wires.
That's what I thought. That's why. How can this work, right? I mean, is there? I really don't understand the whole concept of grounding very well and chassis ground and all that stuff. But is there a way this
Maybe-
can accidentally work?
Chris,
I got it.
your intuition makes sense. It shouldn't be working, but just keep your fingers crossed. You're all set to go.
I think he's running on holes instead of electrons. That's why it works on the white wire.
I mean, yeah, because the chassis ground internally somewhere is probably connected to the other ground, right? So I don't understand this.
Okay, so at the other end, is red the only one that's floating free?
Yeah, red, I left it floating free. I just found it and then just asking myself what is going on here. And
Do
yeah,
you
red
actually
is-
have a chassis ground, and is it possible it's grounded through the brass nuts on the attachment there?
I am not. No, I have nothing going into those brass nuts. No.
But if your red wire is free, that means to me that your slam tech is getting power from somewhere. And chances are, I mean, the ground is probably ground. So black, you could probably ohm out and get a good connection to your ground reference wherever. Grounding neutral, normally a signal ground, right? So that'll be referenced to ground somewhere. So it seems to me that, are you using all three of the TX, RX, and PWM?
Yeah, all of those. And again, this works. I can control the speed. This LiDAR has been working fine. I can crank this up and down. I got power going into white. And again, unless I did something weird here, you know, I have to look at, you know, my explanation now that I think about it is I might not be using that original cable. No, actually, I'm not. So my only explanation right now is I'm using a cable that just happens to have mostly the same colors, but not in the same order.
Oh,
I mean, that's a possibility. I mean, that's a possibility. I think that must be it. But I wanted to check if there is a logical way for this whole thing to work with me feeding power into what they call, you know, neutral. I just wanted to check that from an electrical point of view.
Well, the one theory I had until you said you're using all three signal lines is that I believe, because it's been a long time since I've designed anything but PowerPoint, I believe that a lot of these signal wires, signal pins, they'll have like clamp diodes on them inside the chip to prevent being blown out. And sometimes I think you can parasitically, or I use the word parasitic, but you can, like if you would like if you weren't using the PWM, if you were accidentally connecting that to power somewhere else, I think that might wind up, it possibly could go through the reverse polarity over voltage diode inside the chip through the PWM pin and power the chip through the PWM pin.
Hmm.
I've seen cases like that back when I had actually used my EE degree.
Yeah.
But
Thank you.
I think I'm now convinced that I'm using a different cable that happens to have the exact same colors but in different order. I think that must be it. That's my money's on that. But it just for a moment I was totally confused. What the hell did I do here a couple years ago? How is this possibly working? Right. So that's what happens when you.
If you've got an ohm meter, you'd probably be safest if you can wring out that cable and the connectors and find out exactly what's hooked up to what. I see half a dozen screws on the back of that SlamTech module. Are you brave enough to open it up and see what the connector is hooked up to?
Well, so I just need to check here, like where it's visible here. That's what I need to take a closer look at. I think that'll provide the answer now that I think it through more. Yeah.
And there's probably a pinout for the SlamTech so that it'll tell you if power is on pin 1 or pin 5 or whatever.
And that's what it's telling me. Everything I'm looking, that's what it's telling me. It's okay. I mean, in terms of number and position, forget the colors is what you're saying. What pin number is what? Yeah.
Red, yellow, green, black, blue, white. I mean, the color sequence matches the list at the top.
Yeah. So my sequence may not match that. Is what I'm now thinking.
Oh, right. This isn't your sequence. This is
This is my sequence. This is a stock image. This is what this is a stock image. But if I were to remove mine, now that I think about it, as I'm explaining it, I may find my cable has a different sequence, just the same colors. That must be it. All right.
I still like the holes theory. That or quantum power.
He's using P-type wire.
P-wire. That's right. Yeah.
Oh, Carl, I like your theory that it's simply backfeeding through the protective diodes on the signal lines. I like that
something would have burned out by now. Something would have burned out.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've honestly seen it happen. I kid you not.
I have too. I've seen microprocessors try to run off of backfeeding from signals that were feeding enough juice into them that they just like squirreled along.
Just enough to confuse you for a few hours.
Yeah.
At 4 o'clock on Friday.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, oh, that's the other thing. You didn't check this at 4 o'clock on Friday, did you? Because that's usually the time to guarantee that it's not going to work. Okay. Good luck with that.
And it was a fun test. How many different answers can you come up with? Now ask Chat GPT what it says.
Well, I mean, it is my go-to search engine. Right? I don't use Google as much anymore. So I asked it and I asked it, go check again. How is this working? Please double check. Can you search again? Is anyone on the internet doing this? So I asked it a couple times. It kept consistently coming back with multiple references explaining that no, white is not where power goes.
That does not compute.
Because sometimes you can, if you tell the AI you are wrong, you know, sometimes it'll say, oh yeah, okay, you know. But no, I was not able to convince it otherwise. So no, I must have messed up something here.
Oh, Kareem, what kind of flooring is in the room?
I think it's a fake wood, fake wood planks or something. It has a texture of wood.
So it has that faux grain kind of stuff, but it's laminate.
Yeah. It's sort of flat, but it doesn't have any big divots or anything.
Sort of, kind of.
Yeah.
Thanks. But it's not carpet.
No. It's not concrete, not carpet. So Paul, on Discord, you were mentioning that the simple navigator or the basic navigator, where you instances it, makes a difference. And when I move the instance to the main of my file, I convinced myself that it's working a lot better. It's not going crazy anymore. And I was wondering if you were still, did you make a solution to move it out of the node?
Well, so I moved it out of a node, and that didn't fix my problem but that I was just explaining about not getting responses for a few minutes to 10 minutes. And so then once I found the problem, I went back to the original code where, by then I had subclassed it. So I haven't tried it where it's instantiated within a node.
Okay, yeah, because I look at the examples, and all the examples have it instantiated in the init of the node. So
yeah, no, I haven't tried that.
So, but I took it out and I convinced myself, hey, it's working a lot better. So
yeah. I couldn't. Yeah. And looking for. I was looking for. Okay, mind. Hoping to find some video from last year showing the flooring, but I can't just lay my hands on it real quick. Well, if we ran out of news and open mic topics, maybe it's time to get back to getting ready for the Roboarama competition.
Sounds
All
good to
right.
me.
Right. Good to see y'all.
All right, thanks.
See
All right, bye.
y'all. See some of you on Saturday. The rest of you next
Yes.
Tuesday.
I'll help set up. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Night.